Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Street Mind. I'm Jim Williams, your host, and today we're going to talk about a Britbox series that's coming in just a couple of weeks. Coming, as a matter of fact, on April the 27th. Okay, so circle that on your calendar. It's called Grace. It's a mystery based on the novels by the best-selling UK author Peter James. Now, the series stars one of our favorites, John Sims. We know him from Doctor Who and The Catch. It was adapted as a teleplay by none other than another friend of the podcast, Russell Lewis, who we all know from his brilliant work on Endeavour. Now, what Britbox is doing is they're presenting Grace as two standalone feature-length 90-minute episodes based on the first two books from James's series, with the first, as I said, hitting Britbox and dropping on the 27th of this month. Now, the core plot revolves around Detective Sergeant Roy Grace, a cop who's haunted by the disappearance of his wife, and he's kind of exiled from his department because of his unorthodox style. But trust me, it is that unorthodox style that makes Grace a compelling character and makes this entire series must-see TV. Okay? Now, today we're lucky. That's right. Our guest is none other than the aforementioned Mr. Peter James, the man who created Grace. And Peter, I'm sure you're pleased with what you've got on ITV and now soon to be on Britbox, with the job that's been done by John Sims and the entire gang to do justice to your novel. And of course, that is Grace.
Thank you. I'm really happy how ITV have made it, and I'm massively happy with John Sim. But I do have a wariness. That's part of the reason why I guess it took so long for it to come to the screen. Because in my former life, I was a television and film producer, and I know how easy it is for a book to get really kind of messed up on the screen.
Sure.
Because of, a lot of producers, and this is not the case here, but a lot of time producers make their money out of getting a show made, and they'll do anything they can to get it made, often regardless of the visual integrity. And I've had that happen 3 times in the past. I had 3 previous novels adapted, and one by ABC Television in 1998 made it big. It was a 4-part miniseries with had Jake Lloyd and the lady who was the actress who was married to Tom Cruise at the time.
Nicole Kidman?
Yes, before Nicole Kidman, it was
Oh, okay. Mimi Rogers.
Mimi Rogers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was a huge. Is my voice clear enough? Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep. It was Mimi Rogers and Jake Lloyd, and it was like an $11 million production, and it was not great. And I had the first misfortune of it going out on Sweets Week against the first and the last episode of Seinfeld, ER, and Frasier. Somebody described to me as being in a triple chip sandwich.
Right.
But it just was not a good adaptation. And my novel was called Host, and they changed the name to Virtual Obsession. And I remember meeting a guy at a party in Brighton, and he was a builder. Mm-hmm. And it was like, what do you do? What do you do? So I tell him, he said, anything you might have seen on television. I said, yeah, actually, my novel Host is right on right now under the title Virtual Obsession. And his face fell off a cliff. And he said, please don't take this the wrong way. But I saw the first episode about last week, and I thought it was so bad I'd never bother to read you as an author.
Ouch.
And that was a big lesson. Yeah, it was a big lesson because if you're a best-selling author, you're going to sell between a few 100,000 and maybe a million copies of your novel in the UK. You're hoping on television that upwards of 5 to 8 million people, or maybe more, will watch the screens, and that's the first time they'll know you as an author. So it's if it's a bad adaptation, it can actually hurt you.
Oh, for sure. There's a famous story about Jerzy Kosinski and his absolute. There was no way he was going to ever have one of his books made into a film. And the late Peter Sellers, one of the last movies he ever did, he knew that Jerzy Kosinski watched a specific talk show in New York, and so he went on the Joe Franklin show, which frankly, was not something that Peter Sellers of his ilk would have been on, but he knew that Jerzy Kosinski watched it, and he had Joe Franklin ask him a question: you've done so much in film. Is there anything that you have not yet done that you would like to? And he specifically said, yeah, I would love to play the role of Chauncey Gardner in, being there. And so and he said, I really think I could do it justice. And from that interview, which was then seen by Jerzy Kosinski, that got Being There made. But otherwise, Jerzy Kosinski had no interest in making that film.
Wow, I didn't know that, and I love that story, because I made the only other serious film, I think it was, that Peter Sellers ever made, which was called The Blockhouse.
Yeah, that was a good film.
Thank you, but it was a nightmare making it. That was Sellers and Charles Aznavour, and it was kind of Peter Sellers bought the book originally and desperately wanted to make it. How interesting! I didn't know about it. And I remember watching. I loved the book. I loved Being There, and I loved. I thought it was a phenomenal book, and I thought actually it was a good adaptation.
Yeah, I read the book and watched the film, and I think he did do a pretty good job of being true to the story. With regards to Grace, there, I always said something totally stupid, which I do all the time, but forgive me on this one. You wrote the book, so I almost said, do you remember the opening scene in Grace, where Sims is standing in the jury box and talking about the supernatural, right? And he's being questioned about whether he believes in supernatural. And then he gives that brilliant response that, well, I just put my hand on a Bible. And if I didn't believe in supernatural, why would we all be here? And the first 5 minutes of Grace catches you and grabs you and says, you know what? We're going to go for a ride. Are you coming with us? And it's a fun ride.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I love that scene, and it was just great that it was verbatim to the book as well. And it's an argument that I kind of really believe in as well. It's that when the kind of very arrogant barristers cross-examining him, and I just loved the response and the way that John Sim delivered it as well. Well, John was great. I loved how he kind of really. It's strange because of COVID. He and I have not yet met, but we've had endless conversations. But we've had so many conversations, and on the morning, the scene when he goes. We learn that when we first meet Grace in both the books and the simple of the movie, that his wife Sandy had vanished some years before, and he continues to function as an effective homicide detective. he has spent every free moment trying to find out what happened to her. She was literally, he came home on his birthday and she was gone. And he doesn't know whether she got abducted, whether she ran off with a lover, whether she had an accident, got murdered, what happened. And he's tried everything, including going to mediums. And whilst he continues to function as a very effective homicide detective, he hasn't moved on in his life. And his mate, Glenn Branson, finally sets him up with a blind date. And we see when he goes to the pub to meet her, it turns out to be the blind date from hell. But John Sim emailed me the morning they were shooting that scene, and he said, "Do you think I should wear my wedding ring, or would I take it off?" And I love that he thought about it in that
yes,
detail.
Very detail. That's a,
yeah. He does. He
Go ahead.
No, and he thought about like everything. He really kind of immersed himself in Grace, and I just loved that about him. And it's funny. I'm now in the middle of writing the 18th book in the series, and I've now got John Sim completely in my head as the character, and also Richie Campbell as Glenn Branson. So, and I find it really helpful. I'm actually now writing these novels with these two characters vividly alive in my head.
Well, it's helpful. I mean, you get that from that standpoint, right? You've got somebody already in mind that does make it easier, to adapt it, as long as you can get them signed to the project.
They are completely, and it's. I mean, it's strange because John Sim is very much how I had in my imagination how Roy Grace actually looked when I first created him. And so when he was put up as a suggestion by ITV as playing the character, I just said, he's how I always imagined Roy. It was a complete no-brainer. And similarly with Glenn Branson, with Glenn Branson, he was based on a real life, police officer I met back in 1995. I was going out on patrol on a response shift, and there was this kind of old, what they call an old sweat of a police constable who was kind of near retirement, and there was this young, really energetic black officer whose name actually was Glenn. He was called Glenn Douglas. And he told me he was 32 years old. And I said, you're still a police constable. Are you planning to go for promotion anytime soon? He said, no, I've only just joined the force. He said, this is actually only my first week out of my probationary period.
Wow.
And he said, I said, really? I said, yeah. He said, I was a nightclub bouncer. And then my kid was born. My kid was born, and I looked down at him, and I thought, one day you're going to go to school, and somebody's going to ask you what your dad does for a living.
Right.
And I want you to be able to say something you're proud of. And I joined the police.
What was it like? I know sometimes it can be difficult, and sometimes it can be smooth. What was it like working with Russell Lewis to adapt it to a television script?
It was amazing because we had a long history. When Dead Simple, which was the first book in the series, was published, we had I was in a nice position that every television company wanted it. Right. And equally, I just felt that Roy Grace was something special for me, and I said to my agent, I said, I will only let the rights go if we can get them back, if we're not happy about how it's going. And thank God that we did, because the first company that bought it, which was affiliated to the BBC, spent about 3 years in development. And then I got this really excited phone call from from somebody who sounded like he was 3 years old, and said, BBC Scotland want to put up all the money. And I said, well, that's great, but why does BBC Scotland want to finance a crime series that's actually set in the south of England in Brighton? Oh, no, they've had this idea about transferring it all to Scotland. So has anybody read the books? And they said, oh, yeah. I said,
kind of loses
yes.
its place there, yeah.
They said, look, we think Roy Grace, he could be transferred to Aberdeen Police. I said, do you know what I think? Foxtrot Oscar.
Right.
And then it went through about 5 more stages. It went through about 5 more development deals. And I get this really excited phone call in about 2014 saying, do you know about all the common denominators in all these successful dramas at the moment, all these Scandi dramas? They all have a strong woman detective as the lead character. Well, what about making Roy Grace female? And I gave another Foxtrot Oscar reply.
Right.
I was so annoyed. The one producer that I'd worked with, who I really trusted and who I knew was a big Roy Grace fan, was Andrew O'Connor. And Andrew had moved out to Los Angeles, so I went out to LA to meet him, and he and Andrew and his son and my wife and I, Laura, we all had a game of doubles tennis together, because Andrew and I used to play a lot of tennis together. And he said to me, how are things going with Grace? And I said, I want you to make it. And he said, well, I would love nothing more. And he set up a meeting, came back to England, and we had a meeting with Polly Hill at ITV. And she said, the key to this is to get the right writer. And I said, I'm so pleased to hear you say that, because it's been through 5 different scripts, none of which have worked. And she said, the guy who could write this, I think, is Russell Lewis. So she set up a meeting for Andrew and myself and Russell to meet up. And Andrew O'Connor had been a child actor originally. He'd made quite a successful kids series called Canal Dreams. And he and Russell had both turned out that Russell had also been a child actor. And they'd been at acting school together at the age of 13. So it was like just a magic moment when they realized the connection. And Russ said, I would absolutely love to do this. He said, but I can't. I'm under contract to write another 7 Endeavours for ITV. They're going to take me 2 years. And so we went back to Polly and said, well, we all really clicked, but he's going to take he couldn't start for 2 years. And Polly said, well, the problem is that any really good writer is going to be under contract, and we're not going to get anybody good unless we wait. So we waited, and I'm just so pleased that we did, because Russell has just been a dream to work with.
I personally am a huge fan of Endeavour, and I think it's one of the best shows on television. It challenges you, and it's a great show. So I could see where he and you would be able to collaborate, because Grace, like Endeavour in many ways, is one of those shows that it doesn't give you time to breathe, and that's a good thing. There's no down period in it, and the pace keeps moving. And, in a world full of people with low attention spans, keeping it moving is very important. And the show does. It moves along. It really, as I said before, it grips you and takes you on a ride, but it's a good ride. And, we're looking forward to seeing Grace here in the United States on Britbox. From your standpoint, the world is getting so much closer now that we have the streaming services like Britbox. We get to see your content almost in real time. And, in the old days, it would either show up in PBS or it may not even show up at all. And now we're getting to see it. And I think, this might be in many ways the golden age of television, because we are getting to see quality, not just from the U.S., but quality from around the world.
I completely agree. I think that television has really raised its game, whereas the movie industry, in a way, has lost its way to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
There is just great quality, best quality productions that I've seen in the last, I think, decade. Really, are coming out of television. I think The Night Manager, which Polly Hill was responsible for, was the masterpiece, and there's been so much great television. And I think also what Russell managed to do was I in the way that I write, I think that hello.
I'm here.
Oh, great. Sorry, I thought I'd lost you for a second.
Nope.
The way that I've always written, I write the way that I like to read, and I think most of us we read at night, we're tired. If I get into bed and I pick up a book and I think, oh, I see the chapter is 53 pages long, I think, I'll try again tomorrow. If I see the chapter is like 2 pages long, I think, oh, that's great. And then, the next chapter is only 1.5 pages. Oh, the next chapter is only 4 pages. The next thing I know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm still reading. And I do think that you have to, as a writer with novels, you have to grab the reader literally on the first line of the book and just not let go. Because that's the thing that television thing. And Russ totally got that. And I'm so pleased to hear you say that they'll grab you right at the start. Because I think that at some point I'm looking that they're in the adaptation have done exactly what I try to do in the books, which is to grab the reader literally and just not let go. And I think I was mesmerized watching first episode and second, thinking, wow, he has really captured what I tried to do in the book.
It must be like an out-of-body experience to watch something that you've written come to life on the screen, as was the case in Grace.
It's amazing. I remember when Dead Simple was adapted to the stage about 4 years ago, and Tina Hoppy played Ashley in that, and I was at rehearsals one day, and she turned to me and she said, "You must feel like God, because we were all inside your head, and now we're all here in front of you." it was a really fun analogy, but it is an extraordinary sense that to watch it, to see all those characters that I guess did pop out of my kind of warped imagination, and to see them portray the characters so kind of faithfully. Maybe not looking exactly like the characters I had envisaged, but all of them interpreting their roles exactly the way that I had, and bringing them to life in exactly the way that I had imagined those characters. It was just enormous. But still, and a great honor too. I couldn't be happier with how Simple was.
One last bit to get in about Grace is, and you alluded to it earlier, Brighton is a very big character in this.
It is very fortunate to me. It's not really being that much used in either novels or films, and yet, and I think that all cities, towns and cities, play a really big role, whether it's Manchester or Morse's Oxford, or Michael Connelly's Los Angeles, Edna Bain's New York. I think Brighton is an extraordinary place because on the one hand it's a stunningly beautiful coastal city, but it always had a huge crime pedigree. It began like smugglers of it called Brighthelmstone back in the kind of 1400s, and it became a kind of very raunchy dirty weekend resort during Regency days. George IV built the Royal Pavilion for his mistress, which is probably the world's grandest ever shag pad. And in 1932, Brighton was called the crime capital of the UK and the murder capital of Europe. And it's always had a sort of a dark criminal undertone to it. And I think that's part of what makes great cities. You know, I think what I feel in the most vibrant American cities, New York, Chicago, LA, and San Francisco, Miami, and New Orleans. But they're also the ones who've got, in a way, that kind of dark criminal undertone. And it's the same around the world. In Australia, you've got beautiful Sydney, but Melbourne is the most vibrant. Again, this huge dark criminal undertone. Gangs of Melbourne. There's something about a combination of a really buzzy city and a criminal undertone. It gives, I think, an edge to the city.
It's an amazing situation. Well, look, I don't want to get us in trouble, Peter. We don't want to run too late on our interview time here, but I thank you so very much. Grace is coming to Britbox very soon on the 27th. We look forward to it. And look, promise you'll come back if you've got some more stuff you want to promote in the future.
I'd love to chat again, Jim. Thank you so much for this.
Special thanks to Peter James for joining us today. Remember that on April 27th on Britbox, Grace will debut, and of course that is based on his novels. And we also, in our show box below, besides having, of course, all the information you need to know about Grace, we're also going to have a link to Amazon where you can find much of Peter James's work, all of his books, and we highly recommend you check out both. Check out Grace the series on Britbox. Check out Peter James's novels on Amazon, okay? So we'll be back with more of Stream On right after this from BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
At BMW, we know leaving the road wasn't easy, but anticipating our return taught us to appreciate every drive. The exhilaration of the ultimate adventure. Moments spent with your favorite co-pilots. And the freedom to explore just because. Our time to rejoin the road is finally here.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now, if you're not one of the nearly 70,000 people who've joined our little family worldwide, and we're happy to have folks from Australia, from New Zealand, from Malaysia, that's right, from Croatia, and all over this lovely world joining us. Well, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we make it easy. All right, it's free. You can get us the Apple Podcast Store, same thing over at Google Play. You can find us at Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, as well as Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube, just to name a very, very few. Now, if for some reason you have one of those wonderful assistant devices like, Alexa or Google or Siri, then all you have to do is ask them, please play the latest edition of Stream On with Jim Williams, and guess what? They're going to do it for you. Again, if you still can't find us after all that, don't worry. Pull out the old Google machine, type in Stream On with Jim Williams, hit the favorite button or the subscribe button. Every week you get a brand new edition of the podcast sent directly to your phone, your tablet, or to both, okay? So, we would greatly appreciate it if you take the time to go out there and do that for us today, all right? Okay, now, big news. You know what's going on this weekend. You guys are excited. I know because you keep hitting me up on social media about it, and that is the Oscars. That's right. The Academy Awards, ABC, 8:30, mark it down, Sunday night, 8:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 out on the left coast, okay? So, if you want to watch the show, and of course, as I said before, it's on ABC, what you're going to have to do if you do not get ABC from a streaming service that you presently have, 2 suggestions. 1, Locast. It's LOCAST.org. That's locast.org. Okay? They have a free service. I will say this, it's a good service. It gives you all of your local channels, but they have some, they have a few little bugs, and the one is that commercials pop up at very inopportune times. They ask for a $5 donation, which means that if you get the $5 donation, you do not get these pop-up ads, all right? My suggestion would be to, put up the $5 and subscribe to Locast. That gives you 1 month of Locast. And you may even like it. Personally, I have it. I'm very pleased with it. It's all my local TV stations, and the streaming is very good. So, highly recommend Locast. The other option is to try out one of the other streaming services that offer local television. Again, personal suggestion would be YouTube TV. It's very clean, easy to watch. The interface is fine. Give it a shot for 7 days. Many of you will probably like it and keep it. It's one of the ones that everybody thoroughly enjoys. Take the 7-day free trial and watch the Oscars and check out all the other cool stuff that they have on YouTube TV. Okay, so Locast and YouTube TV will give you access to ABC, which will give you access to the Oscars. Okay, now I know so many of you are already out there. You've got your picks, and please continue to share them with us on social media. Do it all weekend long. As we lead in, we're going to put a link in this show box to the Oscars and where all the categories are, and you can pick the ones that you think are going to win. Everybody thinks that No Man's Land, which of course streams on Hulu, is going to be the best picture, and you could be right. Another one is Anthony Hopkins getting a Best Actor nod for The Father. I personally think that he will get that. Although Chadwick Boseman could very well get a posthumous recognition for his work in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is a phenomenal film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on Netflix. So those are a couple which you guys are constantly giving me feedback on. I honestly think that Viola Davis, speaking of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, is going to definitely win. Although you can't rule out Frances McDormand, because she, of course, did. Frances McDormand did an outstanding job with No Man's Land, so it's either going to be Viola Davis or Frances McDormand. Either one, and you can't go wrong with either in that particular case. Best Supporting Actor, let's see. Again, this one is an HBO Plus show, movie, I should say. Daniel Kaluuya, who Judas and the Black Messiah, I think he's going to win. Some think that Paul Raci from The Sound of Metal is going to take it. Raci did a really good job in that movie, but I really think that the one to beat will be Daniel Kaluuya from Judas and the Black Messiah. But that's just me, right? Best Supporting Actor. There's a lot of those out there who should. I'm going to go with Amanda Seyfried from Mank. Again, that's a Netflix film. It's a really good show and a very interesting. It's a black and white movie, and it really does show some really cool stuff. It is about the making of Citizen Kane, and it really is amazing picture. So we'll see. I do think that that's going to be one that we're going to have a really good time checking out. Let's see. Anything else? I'm going to say, by the way, on Sunday, if you happen to be watching in the UK, you will be able to see the Oscars on Sky Cinema, and that's 10 p.m. U.S. time on Sky Cinema on Sunday. Okay, so it'll be well into the night before you get to see it, but you will get to see it Sunday night or early Sunday morning, depending upon how you look at it. So it's 8:30 Eastern Time here in the U.S. on ABC, and 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Sky Cinema in the UK. All right, everybody? Well, there you go. You've got all your information on the Oscars, and we greatly appreciate all of the feedback you've given us. Speaking of greatly appreciate, we greatly appreciate Peter James, who is the brilliant UK author and the man who penned the Britbox series Grace, which we will be watching come the 27th of April. And we thank Peter for joining us today. Well, that about wraps it up, everybody. For the entire team here at Stream On, I'm Jim Williams saying have a wonderful and safe Oscar weekend. We'll see you next week where we will have the fun time of disassembling what we just talked about. That's right, the Oscars. We'll figure out who won and who shouldn't have won, and we'll have some fun with that. Plus, who knows who's going to show up. We got some fun guests coming down the line, and let's all be surprised together. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful and safe Oscar weekend. We'll see you next time right here on Stream On.